One of the things I love talking about and educating about, talking about and telling people about are the Seiko 7A series chronograph movements. I still find even now, these days, there are a lot of people that don't really know about them. And a lot of people that still think that quartz equals garbage, or quartz equals cheap. And so I still deal with that. And so one of the times I see this is, say, if I'm wearing something like this, a Seiko 7A 287040. That's what this is. This is the JDM version of that watch. I'll post pictures, and a lot of people are really appreciative. They're, oh, that's a really attractive watch. And it is attractive. And there's always going to be some guy, some ignorant watch snob who says, oh, well, they're just ripping off Omega. It's just cheap Omega ripoff. It's just garbage. And it's true, in a sense. Seiko used a lot of the design cues from the Omega Speedmaster, which is right here with a flake on it. Get away. So yes, and what I always point out though at that point is when somebody says something like that, I just kind of shake my head a little bit, because when you're up against somebody who is both opinionated and ignorant, you have a hard row to hoe ahead of you. Anyway, yes, they look similar, but in typical Seiko fashion, Seiko looked at the Omega Speedmaster and they said they liked the looks of it. And they said, well, okay. But then they approached it in a completely different way. They created the Seiko 7A analog quartz chronograph. Before Seiko invented this movement, it didn't exist. There was no such thing as an analog quartz chronograph. Seiko invented these in the early 1980s, and they brought them to market in fall 1981, the movement itself. And they were extremely proud of them, rightly so. They are a completely interesting and novel way to approach the problem of analog timekeeping in a chronograph setup without using a mechanical function like this. I mean, this Omega right here, this is a 2007 model. It's got the 1861 in it, which is a version of the 861, which is a version of the 321, which is a version of the 320, which has been made since the 1940s. So they've been doing the same thing the same way for pretty much a very long time. Seiko looked at what they did. They said, okay, we want to do that, but we're going to come at it a completely different way. They designed it underneath the hood to be something that never existed before. Now, what I'm about to show you, rest assured, this movement is not in great shape. This movement came out of a watch that was water damaged, and so this movement was already compromised. But I want to show you what the inside of a 7A quartz chronograph looks like. Okay, so we have this here. This is the, and I've already sort of pre-prepped this to take it apart. Normally we'd have screws in it, and there would be a strap here for the battery, and the battery lead is missing, and there's a spring right here that sits on top of this, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so this is the back plate. This is the first thing that you see with one of these. Okay, so we take that anti-magnetic shield off, and there's the circuit. And you can see somebody did not take care of their watch, specifically the button seals, and so this thing flooded. And you can see, and there should also be the trimmer piece is supposed to be right here as well. But there's the circuit. And let's take the circuit off. The thing about the Seiko 7A is that Seiko approached it in a way that was just extreme overkill. Extreme, super overkill. They overbuilt the ever-loving heck out of this thing. This is a quartz movement that has 4 separate trains. 4 coils, 4 separate trains. Let me get that off of there. Hang on just one second, because that's set on nice and tight. Hang on, because I want to show you the whole thing without that spacer on there. And the spacer, all the spacer does is really, it's just a spacer, and it has these little connector points through to talk to the, between the main plate and the circuit. Now you can see the buttons are rusty. These are the clickers for the buttons there. See this little assembly right here? That's the clicker. There's supposed to be one, two, 3 of them. These are gone because they rusted away, because somebody, the only thing, these movements are so robustly built that the only thing that could conceivably kill one is water or a battery leak. And this one got water. which is just, it's too bad because it's an amazing piece of technology. These watches have 15 jewels. Quartz movements don't really even need jewels. They don't really need them because they're unstressed trains. I've never seen a Seiko 7A die from wear. Never. I've seen them from killed by water and by batteries. That's it. 15 jewels. All of this stuff with fly-by-wire technology, 4 separate coils, all metal construction. These things are amazing. Seiko was so proud, and rightly so, of this incredible movement. I mean, they did all kinds of crazy stuff to promote it worldwide. They got it into movies. Some of the famous examples are the movie, this is later, of course, but the 1986 movie. Was it 1986? Yeah, because I was in high school when it came out. Aliens. These watches, Seiko managed to get these watches into Aliens. This was Bishop's, the character Bishop's watch, Lance Hendrickson, and this was Ripley's watch, Sigourney Weaver. I mean, these were popular enough that Seiko reissued these. They reissued a lot of the line of the Giugiaro watches, and because they had contracted, they were so proud of the movement, they contracted with Giorgetto Giugiaro to design a lot of movements for them. They paid a lot of money to have that done. And Seiko has reissued a lot of the Giugiaro designs. Here's one. This is a reissue. It does not have a 7A movement in it, but it uses his stylings. Seiko, I mean, I guess one of the most famous movie watches is this one. This is a James Bond 7828 7020. This is quite collectible. You just don't see these very often, but it's just amazing. People look at these and they don't differentiate in their heads between, oh, cheap quartz and a 7A. I mean, Seiko quartz at this time was unreal. And to know underneath the hood of this thing, it's not just some quartz movement. Oh, I need to replace the battery. Look at that. Doing the double second jump. Because that's another feature that this thing has, is it has a low battery warning. So now I know I need to trade the battery on this thing. So I will do that later on this afternoon. Get that taken care of. But yeah, there it is. That's the James Bond one. But even more so than that, to prove the worth of the 7A, Seiko managed to get the 7A quartz chronograph into actual military service. This is the RAF Gen 1, actual issued watch for the Royal Air Force. This one wasn't set to the correct time. This one is the correct time. This one I just serviced. But these are actual issued watches to the Royal Air Force. One is from 1986 and one is from 1990. You can see they were worn on the web strap there. And they were good enough for the Royal Air Force. Not only that, less prestigiously, the South African Air Force was issued these 7828 7040, the non-JDM version, and later on they had a small sampling of the next generation 7838 7070s, which are these. And these are rare. I think the South African Air Force only got 300 of these, and bad batteries were put into them, and all the batteries leaked and the watches were all destroyed, but the South African Air Force still has them in storage somewhere, apparently. But anyway, these were military issued watches. So that's how strong they were. And Seiko has other nice designs, and I mean, these are like these right here. This is the 7828 7029, the gold version. So it's the gold version of that James Bond watch. And you can get these for cheap, for like 50, 60 bucks, which is insane. Because in good condition, if you buy one like this with nice white loom on the hands, clean condition, it's got some wear in the bracelet, these are cheap. They're so cheap. They're criminally cheap for how magnificent they are. I mean, these watches are equipped with a trimmer. They're all metal. 15 jewels. They're unbeatable in terms of a quartz watch. They're just, I mean, just in terms of pure timekeeping, they're astonishing. They're beautiful watches. And Seiko did all kinds of other nutty stuff. This is one that's not seen very often. This is a, come on, I should have this stuff memorized. 7828 7079 with its seersucker band. They're just lovely watches. They're very cool, very much of their time. So, the point being is that when you're wearing your 7828 and somebody says, oh, they're just ripping off Omega, you can say, well, sort of. If you want to just talk aesthetics, but you want to talk about actual functional timekeeping, Omega is playing second fiddle to this magnificence. And I'm saying that as somebody who loves Omega. Isn't that something? Anyway, gotta love the Seiko 7A quartz movement. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just put them down in the comments and I'll be glad to answer. As always, I'm speaking extemporaneously, so if you have a question or if I've missed something, just ask. Thank you.